just all right, so I've just got this going, so I've got it. All right. Yes. So if you could just start, sir, just so I can test your audio, just so I can hear you all right. Can I just get you to say and spell your full name, please, and just give me your title as you see fit?
Okay, so like my real name is spelled Oleksandr, and then last name is Ananich.
Perfect. Well, thank you. All right. I think our levels sound good. Again, thank you so much for
My
taking
speaking abilities also.
Yes, great speaking abilities too. Yes, I'm so glad to be able to converse with you in English for this, because this makes it so much better than I could ever speak. So I really don't want to beat around the bush here, but I'm speaking with you because you have clearly seen a lot of unbelievably horrific stuff in the time since Russia invaded. And I just kind of want you to be able to start with telling me what you want to say, and just kind of give me the layout of what's been going on with you for the last almost 8 weeks now, 2 months. Sort of just talk about, let's start with who you are. This doesn't need to go on first, but let's just kind of warm up with that. Start with who you are, Alexander.
Yeah, you can call me Alex. That's fine.
Alex, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm Alex, I'm 25 and I live in Kyiv, but I come from a small town called Enerhodar. It's become quite famous, maybe a bit, because it's a nuclear town that's been captured by Russia. So the town is under occupation right now, and it's famous for hosting the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe. And they actually like rocketed it, which wasn't funny at all, and it was of course insane. But yeah, look around, nothing looks sane. But anyway, yeah, I had left Kyiv 2 days before the war started. Let's say my source from MI6 convinced me to do that. So I did. And then, yeah, I went for Lviv, and then that's where I was on the 24th, when the whole thing began. And when it began, I was very surprised, because I woke up and I knew that Lviv was being bombed as well. I mean, I understand the east, like maybe Kyiv, but Lviv had always been like this super far west thing that would never think they would attempt to bomb, dare to bomb. But anyway, I left even further west to Uzhhorod. It's right on the border with Slovakia, and that's where I was up until yesterday. Not that I've seen much of the war myself, but of course, like I have friends and relatives everywhere. Like, for example, my whole family, which is my mom, my stepdad, and 2 of my brothers who are 14. They're under occupation right now. And again, it's not always just what you see, but what you experience by dealing with your loved ones, right? So when my brothers are texting me on Insta that rockets are flying around their apartment and they're just 14, and they are like telling me that they are scared, or they are asking questions like, so they're gonna capture us, so are we gonna get killed or are we gonna become slaves? It's quite horrific to hear that, from somebody who's 14 and should not be asking that, and should be wondering about whatever science or rap music. Yeah, but here we are. And also I had a cousin in Kharkiv, so it was very heavily shelled, and she had just given birth, so she basically had to live in a basement with her newborn child, but she eventually managed to escape. And yeah, her testimony also is like insufferable to read. So that's basically what my experience has been so far, just doing my best to help, but also just generally also trying to get through all of that. Because also lots of people have left to Uzhgorod or Lviv, like to the west, and it's pretty. It got really hard to find an apartment or just decent place. I mean, we understand it's war, so we we kind of found something that looked like a pretty bad dormitory and stayed there. Not complaining, but still, it can hardly be called a place where you can work normally or sleep normally because you have to share a room with people and stuff. And there is a lot of also tension inside Ukraine. Like for example, during like an evening I spent with my friends, so we went to a bar, just had a couple of drinks, and it was already in nighttime. And I decided to just walk home instead of getting an Uber. So I did walk, and I was stopped by people with guns at some point. Uh, and I very politely asked why am I being stopped, like what's wrong? Could you please introduce yourselves? And anyway, they just called the police and they took me to a police station. And I kept asking questions, and there was like a pretty like huge big policeman guy, and he just took me to the corridor and slapped me in the face, like asking questions like, do you understand now? Do you have any more questions? Well, eventually I I found out that the reason why I was stopped because I was passing by an SBU building, and SBU it's Ukrainian secret services, so like MI6 or CIA for America and Britain. Um, and they thought I was like putting marks somewhere, so they took my phone. They forced me to unlock it for them, and so lots of things going on with different people, good, bad. It's kind of quite insane. That's how I would put it, to understand that it's happening in the year 2022. And especially you probably have heard like the events of Bucha. Yeah, so it's what, 20 kilometers away from where I am right now. So these were just the most ordinary people in the world. It's like, I don't know, you're from Vancouver. It's like if you heard that people from Toronto were raped, shot, like, and then you see pictures of bodies lying around just on the road, elsewhere, everywhere. And that's insane, absolutely. uh, that's how it's been.
I mean, thank you very much for giving me that overview of just how horrible this sounds. From what we see, I mean, we see the worst of things, but very much from like a high vantage point. We see, you know, we see buildings that have been reduced to rubble. We see people in streets. We see all of this like horrible stuff that no one should ever have to see. But at the same time, it's really hard to kind of get a sense of what that feels like in just a typical day-to-day situation for someone who is, you know, just months ago was living their lives as best they could. Hopefully, I mean, a lot of people say, you know, it
Absolutely.
started back when Crimea was invaded, so it's not like it's just overnight things changed. But from what you're seeing now, what are some of the things that you just can't do, or things that you want to do but are just completely stopped from doing? Like what sort of life plans, sort of trajectory of your life did you have, and then how did the invasion change that?
Oh well, yeah. I had really good plans, like many people. I was, for example, planning to sell the apartment that I inherited in my hometown and use it to get good education somewhere in Europe, for example, or America, if that would be possible. Yeah, now since it's occupied by Russia, it's pretty impossible to do. But yeah, that's just not the worst thing. Like I could say that the first 3 days dragged like eternally. It was just like one really, really, really long day, or just a month. But then, like the worst thing, you understand that you get used to war. Like it's a commonplace right now in your mind. So when you hear an airstrike siren, what I can tell you that most people don't really care about it anymore. They've just gotten used to everything, and especially those who had witnessed like Kyiv being shelled or just any other place. So now it's not being heavily shelled. Some rockets do fly in and strike, but it's mostly in the outskirts. So yeah, people just go on with their lives as much as they can, and me too, because I think we feel that right now we have to summon all the strengths that we have, and then we can fall apart later after victory.
I mean, that's got to be horrible to think about being numb to something as crazy as war and as horrifying as that. But in terms of you're still in Ukraine and your family where you grew up, did you guys have any plans or any ideas of possibly leaving Ukraine for the time being, or did you try to do that, or was it always the plan to, get as far away from the violence or at least stay? I mean, how are they doing? Are they okay? Are they safe? And for you?
Yeah, that's been my big quarrel with my parents, because they refused to leave when it was like pretty easy to do, and I left again, primarily because of the mentioned source from MI6, who I personally know. So I've been pretty heavily convinced that this is going to happen, and I should be cautious. I should do something. So I did, but it was incredibly hard to convince people here in Ukraine, because nobody believed it. Like we knew what Russia was, but nobody believed that Russia would go the insane road and start shelling Kyiv, for example. Yet it happened, and uh, as for my family, they are thinking of moving to Kyiv, but like with many other families, there is this I would say a heartbreaking conflict, that women refuse to leave without their man. Like for example, what my mom said and what other women I have talked to who are adult and have families and so on, their first response is, how am I going to leave him? Like I can't do that. So they know that they may face the fate of Bucha, because Bucha happened when the Russians were actually leaving the place, not when they like were attacking and capturing the place. So if my hometown is ever going to be, fought back, I very much doubt that the Russian soldiers will leave peacefully, because we have prior experience. We have very recent examples of what they do and how they return back. Um, so yeah, it's a very sad and a very complicated conflict and a question for each family, and for things like that, because first, like your alternatives are, you can either stay in the occupied hometown and anything can happen. Lucha can happen, or maybe it will be less hardcore, but nonetheless pretty crazy, because they can be torturing people like activists, or they go to shops and small businesses and force them to re-sign their contracts. So your alternative, the first one, is to stay in the occupied town. Your second alternative is to attempt to leave, with the possibility of getting shot. Very hard choice to make.
Yeah, that's horrifying. Um, when it comes to all the that's not just usually the things that you hear every day. I mean, we don't really get to hear those sort of things when we think about, people having to move, lots of people getting out, but I guess it's just not as commonly talked about what happens to the people who stay, because it's harder for journalists, media, press to get really close to places of much more seriously close to the conflict. So if I can push you a little bit on that, I mean, I can't imagine what your family's going through, and I'm sure that you're scared for what could possibly happen in the near future, but what else is it like for people who live close to the conflicts that they're also seeing as well, that maybe we don't see as much, or just some more intimate kind of ways in which like the horrors of war just kind of manifest in ways that we just don't see?
Um, well, I think like the um, like Bucha manifested the most, especially in the media. So basically, you already have an idea, and like lots of stories of children being raped in front of their parents, and parents being raped in front of their children, and then they get shot, and all sorts of things. Or like when they come up to a man and they ask if he has a cigarette, and then he answers, "Oh, I myself haven't smoked for 4 days," and they just shoot him in front of his wife. And that's what we know from Bucha and from testimony of people who witnessed that. But there is also Mariupol. There are also other different places, especially in the east, of course, right now. So if you take Mariupol, just multiply Bucha by 100. So what our government officials are saying, that what they've been able to kind of estimate, because it's very hard to do that right now. It's at least 20,000 people killed in just one city, uh, and and that's like one of the. It used to be one of the best cities in Ukraine. For example, Transparency International rated it as the most transparent city in Ukraine, and lots of investment was coming through. Lots of things were being built, and now it's in ruins. And now it's impossible to get a green corridor from there. So people are buried on the streets. People are burned in their portable crematoriums. uh, yeah, and I laugh because it's just a reaction. So I don't think I can go further than that. I'm just happy that my family has not experienced that, although I do have to say yet. So I very much hope that they'll be able to leave anywhere. And all of my friends have not witnessed anything like that. But these are the things that are available. Just you can find them online, these kinds of things.
Right. I mean, I appreciate that. I can't imagine from what you're going through just in terms of the day to day. I guess the only other thing I wanted to know specifically was when this all started, and you said that you kind of had a bit of advance notice, but a lot of people were like, "Oh, this couldn't happen." Um, what was that sort of tension like in the days just leading up to before the invasion? Like, was there sort of more of a consensus that it wouldn't happen? Did more people think it wouldn't than it would? Like, were you sort of ready to start moving like even beforehand? Because you said that you like left a few days prior. So what did it feel like to be speaking with many people who kind of doubted what would happen?
Okay, yeah. So if you asked most people, they would say it would not happen. But at the same time, these people were stocking up food and water. Um, so they were living with like huge bags of food. They were, I mean, supermarkets. And lots of people had gotten their, emergency suitcase, emergency backpack ready. So while people still could not believe it, and and I have to tell you that even when that happened, and even on the third, fourth, fifth day, I still like could not. I don't think we could fully process that it did happen, because for example, the first dream I ever had like at night while I was sleeping that there was war was just maybe 7 days ago. Um, so in my mind, it still had not been processed like fully, the new reality that Ukraine and the whole world live in now. But yeah, in the first days, there was tension, absolutely. Um, but still, people did not believe that.
Now, do you think it was they wouldn't believe it because it just seems so crazy that this would happen in this day and age, or was it something
Exactly.
more? Yeah. Ugh. Um, that's sort of the thrust that I wanted to put to you. But Alex, I mean, please, like, we're very curious. So, is there anything else that you wanted to add, or just anything else that you think that the world needs to know, or just that you wanted to get off your chest or say as well?
um, well, of course, it's the response of the West, which has been like controversial in our people's minds. So first, we are indeed eternally grateful to countries like Poland, especially Romania, Estonia, um, Germany, for all of the assistance with the refugees, which has been honestly impeccable. Like that was so surprising that they did it so smoothly, so professionally, like with such empathy, and as quick as they could also, because some people had to stand in line for more than 24 hours in the freezing cold, without water, without food. So that was also a pretty hard thing to do to cross the border, and not because the officials were I don't know, being too bureaucratic. They dropped all of the bureaucracy. Like they would even let people in with our internal passport, not even with or like without any documents at all. They would still let people in. So we are, I think, eternally grateful for that. And of course, for the weapons, for the financial aid, humanitarian aid. But at the same time, from our point of view, the response of the West has been weak, and now going back and thinking of how things were in 2014, and that's the sanctions that the West had imposed. They were not real sanctions, and that was the beginning of the real war. Now we all understand what that was. Like for some reason it was stopped at that point, but as you see, it wasn't stopped for long. Um, they started again, and they started a full-time job, so to speak. Um, so we we probably had hoped that the West would be much stronger, and much tougher, because that's how you deal with hooligans. You don't say that I block your credit card. It will not stop them.
Oh, all right. Well, I think that that's pretty much all the questions that I had for you, Alex. Just before we wrap up, I just wanted to clarify a few things. So you're from what was the small town that you were from where the nuclear power plant is?
So Enerhodar is called.
Okay. And
It's
now,
hard to say it in English well.
true enough. But and now you are in Kyiv?
Yeah, I'm back to Kyiv.
Okay. And in the time that you've been there, your family is still in your hometown?
Yeah, they still are.
Okay. And you were back in that hometown before the war broke out? Or where were you before the war broke out?
No, I was in Kyiv. So
Okay.
I was in Kyiv, and then 2 days before I left for Lviv, and then I just
Right.
moved further west. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And is there anything in the time that you've experienced here, like how's your status in living? Like, are you comfortably safe right now? And are things okay with you right now? At least for the most part. I mean, if you're not planning on leaving the country, how are you, at least at this moment, are you planning on moving away if you can, or are you planning on staying put until things end or when that might be?
Mhm. Well, first, I cannot leave the country legally. So all men aged 1860 are banned from leaving the country. Um, So the city officials have been warning against returning to the city, but bit by bit, people have been returning because, as our government officials say, as people like analytics say, that there is no way they can capture Kyiv or try to recapture parts of it. So it's forever gone for them, but they still can try to shell it, not massively, but they still can. And the biggest worry that we have here is the 9th of May. I don't know if you know, it's like an ideological holiday for Russia, the Victory Day. So we are all anticipating that they will try to pull something off just to show off during the parade they have in the Red Square on the 9th of May. So we are afraid that something horrible can happen, especially to Kyiv, because it would be very symbolic since they are losing the war. But I myself decided to take the risk because I was safer in Uzhhorod, for example, so in the western part. But I live in the city center, and there is a metro station that is 105 meters deep. So sounds like a good shelter to me. And when there is an airstrike siren, and we get a lot of them every day, and we have an app for that, by the way. So it just rings from your phone. Yeah, so I can just go there. And basically, as for returning to Kyiv, most people have been saying that, okay, I will wait till the 9th of March. I see how of May, I'm sorry. I see how it goes, and then I will attempt to return.
Wow, that's scary to have a like a date on the calendar looming like that. It's
Yeah, because many people are afraid they could nuke us, just out of despair, out of like this revenge that we did not surrender.
and I guess the only other thing is because 18 to like 65-year-old men aren't allowed to leave. Is there ever any worry that you might be conscripted or called upon to fight by like the government or by the army? Is that a worry that you had to have or as well?
Oh yeah, that's the worry that I still have. I I would be I would do good at revolutions, and that's what I did when I was 18. But I don't think I'm very good at war. I think it would be useless. I would just immediately get scared, and I would just um, I would not be helpful at all. On the contrary, so yeah, I'm kind of scared. But at the same time, we have a situation where people would go to like conscription offices. Let's put it this way, and people were denied of conscription because we have just enough people. So like there are also people who are willing to join the forces, but they are not yet invited. So I think they will invite those people first.
Okay. I think that's everything. The only other thing is just before I let you go, and I can text you this later, just if you have any pictures or videos or something that you can send through WhatsApp or whatever, just so that we can like, if we were doing like a web piece as well, just the visuals really do help as well, if you're able to
Oh
send.
yeah,
That'd be
sure,
perfect.
sure.
I think that's everything. And because this is a Zoom call and I went through the rigmarole, this might be for used on radio as well as TV and for the web, just to let you know. And if we can make something work out of this that we push, it might be in the next day or so. I can easily
Hmm.
send you the link, and you can. We'll keep in touch about this, sir. Thank you very
Hmm.
much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you too.
Yes. Stay safe, okay? And please
Yeah,
feel free to reach out if you ever want somebody in Canada to kind of know what's going on. And I will be following up with you hopefully before May. And yeah, we'll talk again, hopefully, sir. All right, take care.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Bye, Alex.
Take care too. Bye.